on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
But then I'm going to put something out under my own name. And that will be the first time.
Will that still be in romance when it goes under your own name?
So, it's comedy post-apoc is under my own name.
Sounds like a genre-defining series.
It's written from the dog's POV.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers. No more barriers. No one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Show with me, James Blatch.
And me, Mark Dawson.
Suddenly looking around thinking, have I started everything? Because we've been chit-chatting before we got started. Hello. It is a Friday. It is the Self-Publishing Show. We have an interview today that will leave you raring to get going, back onto your career, back onto the keyboard, or resuming your career, and with a spring in your step. I promise you, it's a guarantee, today's interview. Stay tuned for that in a moment. Right, a couple of things to talk about. We have, you would have heard the Self-Publishing Show live coming up this June. Still an opportunity market. People want to split the payments over four equal amounts.
Yes, so we, as I mentioned before, we had some emails from people who wanted to split the payments out. So we managed to find a way to do that, and you can get a ticket if you pay. It's 4 months, £50 a month, and that brings you up to the ticket price in time for the show. And if you want to take advantage of that, I think you've got till the end of February. So 20th of February is kind of the last time that you can fit those payments in before the show. So what's the URL for that? SPS Live?
Yes, it is. So selfpublishingformula.com/SPS Live.
We should also mention that we have, I don't think we've, get confused, but I don't think we've mentioned the first speaker yet, have we? Have we?
I don't think we have, no.
I've mentioned it in an email and in the Facebook group, but we've got Bella Andre is coming along. So Bella I've known for good 10 years now. Or at least I don't know Bella very well. We've had a few emails every now and again, and haven't actually met. So looking forward to meeting her. And she's going to be coming along and doing at least one, maybe two sessions at the show. And her focus is going to be on how to get your work translated and sold in different languages. Because she is, actually, I'm pretty sure I have mentioned this on the podcast, so I kind of recall this now. But anyway,
really? I don't know. Yeah, all blow into one.
I know, but yes, she's doing extremely well in lots and lots of different places. So we're looking forward to her coming on and telling us how to do that. And I would use that as as some impetus to look at France and Spain and Italy and places like that. See if I can start looking at getting the Milton series in those places as well. So yes, Bella will be the first speaker, or the first one that we've announced, and we'll start to announce a few more as we go through the weeks up to the show in June.
Yes, looking forward to that. Potentially got quite a big industry player in the shadows. Might be able to announce soon as well. It should be fun. Tease that along. You definitely want to be there. I mean, the main thing about it...
Shadows.
Shadows.
Is Cliff coming?
Yes. The main thing about it is the networking for me. I mean, that's what I get out of these conferences each time. And so February is your last chance to split the payments over 4. That finishes the 28th of February is literally the last day for that. It's not a leap year, is it? No, it's an odd year. They're never odd years, I don't think. Okay, right. We have also very happily an announcement to make for our foundation winners for 2023. So we operate a foundation, the SPF Foundation, which has grown over the years. It's administered by Mrs. Dawson, Lucy, Mark's wife, and we have a number of sponsors. So we're up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think it's 8 now. These awards go to authors who need a bit of help to get going because of background issues. So they get our courses, they get $1,500, something like that, I think, to spend at Reedsy. I should know the figures here. It's not on my briefing, but anyway, I know who's been awarded them. The details are all on our website, but it's a fantastic start. And we've had some amazing success stories, really brilliant success stories. And you'll know that if you're a regular listener to the show. from people who just needed a little bit of help at the beginning of their career. So here are the winners for 2023. Mystery and Cozy Genre, sponsored by Mark Recklow. Thank you very much indeed, Mark. The winner is Megan Toey, who writes as T.E. Harkins. Congratulations, Megan. For Horror, which is sponsored by Written Word Media. Of course, that's Free Booksy, Bargain Booksy, and those other brands that they have. That's J.L. Murray. Well done, J.L. Murray. Fantasy, sponsored by Reedsy. Bree Moore, well done, Bree. A Thriller, sponsored also by Reedsy, is Reese Stalbersmith. Well done, Reese Stalbersmith. Fantastic to hear this. We have 3 romance winners, romance genre. So from Lucy Score, James Rousseau. And I thought James did a sort of military, but it says romance here. Anyway, okay, I hope this is right. We have Annie Charm, sponsored by Lucy Score. Thank you very much indeed to Lucy, and well done, Annie. We have Marie McKay, sponsored by James Rossone. Does say romance here, but I will have to double check that. And we have S. Rodman, maybe Dennis's other half, I don't know, a romance winner, sponsored by us here at SBF. And finally, in the thriller category, and I saw him on Twitter announcing his win a couple of days ago, Gomery Kimber. Well done, Gomery. Very excited to see what happens over the next few years with your start that the foundation gives you. If you would like to be considered for an SBF Foundation slot and get all those goodies and financial support for your author career, head over to our website, selfpublishingformula.com, and you'll see the SBF Foundation as one of the menu options at the top.
Yeah, we have had some loads of success. People like Elle Thorpe, Britt Andrews, who might have an announcement about Britt quite soon as well. But she done exceptionally well, and went from basically nearly foreclosing on her house to 5 figures a month. So yeah, obviously you need to be a good writer, and all of these writers were picked mainly on the strength of their writing, and we just think they need a bit of a leg up to get them going. So hopefully, and we had some lovely emails from people thanking us for selecting them and giving them a hand. So we would love to be able to say in a year's time that we've got another Britt Andrews or another Elle Thorpe suddenly doing really, really well and making a living from their writing. Always the highlight to see that.
Very exciting. Nice legacy for us to have. Okay, right. One more announcement. We have some live training available for you. This is on TikTok, how to learn to use TikTok to sell your books. We're doing that on the 27th of February at 9 p.m. UK time. So a little bit earlier in the day in the US, and the next day in the morning down under. To sign up for that webinar, simply head to selfpublishingformula.com/learn TikTok, all one word.
Is this the first time we're using Zoom?
This probably is the first time we're using Zoom. So we're going to be, as we're recording this on a Friday, we're going to be doing some thrash testing of it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, and then we will make our decision. But it looks like we are going to be using Zoom, moving away from GoToWebinar. Yeah. Okay, time for our interview. I'm very excited about this. It's Katie Pickford, it's Kate Pickford. For some reason it says Katie here, but it's Kate Pickford. And Kate is a regular speaker at the conferences, and she's one of those speakers who people come up to us and say, you have to get Kate Pickford on your show, because they come out walking on air from her session. She is brilliant at distilling a lot of things down for authors and very, very good on mindset. I'm not going to do any more of an introduction. Let's just get straight into this interview. Here's Kate.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Kate Pickford, welcome to the Self-Publishing Show. I think if people are familiar with the conferences, they probably have sat in one of your sessions at some point, because you do talks at a lot of conferences, don't you?
I do, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why we've got you on the show, because so many people come out of those sessions saying you've got to get Kate Pickford on your show and grill her. So we're going to talk about, I think broadly we're going to talk about getting our seat on the chair, writing books and being successful, which is what this is all about anyway. But it is obviously easier said than done, and sometimes we are our own worst barricade in the way. So a bit of self-sabotage we can talk about. But why don't we start with you and your writing career? Give us the lowdown on that, Kate.
So I can't remember not writing. I can't remember not writing for other people. I wrote, other people's essays at school. I wrote other people's essays at university. I I probably shouldn't say some of this out loud now that I think about it.
Well,
and they'll never be able to. They'll never find
too
me.
late now.
So I've written a couple of PhDs for people who are ABD and stuck.
Wow.
I wrote a lot of. I know.
Where were you when I was at school?
And then so there wasn't marriage equality back then, and my wife and I couldn't live in England or in America, so we went to Japan. And at that time, a lot of Japanese businessmen were going to American business schools, and they had to write a personal essay. And so I would go and I would interview them, and the question they picked almost invariably, they'd have a choice of questions, and they'd almost always pick, who is your hero? And so it would be, a Japanese samurai, and I love Dokugan-ryu because blah, 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 blah. So I wrote those for money. And then a Japanese publisher picked me up, and I wrote children's stories for a Japanese publisher for a while. And I don't want to say how old I am, but I was old enough that my publisher said, you can live anywhere in the world as long as you have a fax machine.
Oh, okay.
Before the internet existed. So my now wife, then girlfriend, was at NYU grad film. And so I went to New York, and eventually, I don't know if you know this about America, but you can win your green card in a lottery. And
Whoa.
I won my green card. Yeah. So Brits can't actually apply, but I was born in Germany. So I'm a German native. I can't get German nationality, but I count as German in some way.
Okay.
So I won my green card so I could stay here permanently. And at that point, we were making films. So I was making films and rescuing other people's films because, quite often, quite a lot ends up on the screen that shouldn't be there. So I was a bit of a script doctor for people. And we made a few films, and, you can win a lot of stuff when you're making films, and you just think, because you're in your 20s, you think Hollywood's going to come knocking, and Hollywood doesn't come knocking. The crazies come knocking. The crazies come knocking, and they say, my sister-in-law is blah, 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 big name. I really can't say the big names. And I want you to write this screenplay for me. And then they go into turnaround. And so we had some very, very successful films. They were so successful, I went to work at a hedge fund. And I accidentally worked at a hedge fund for several years. And I was still writing other people's books. And I had luckily made enough to retire at 44. So I retired when I was 44. And I was still ghostwriting. So by then I was ghostwriting other people's novels. And I just couldn't write my own. I hired a hypnotherapist. Huh. I was truly, truly blocked my own stuff. I would sit down and there would be nothing. And by then I'd written a lot of books and a lot of screenplays. And it took me, some of these people. So I worked at Author Accelerator. I was a book coach for Author Accelerator for a while. And I hired a book coach. And what I discovered, and I did a course at UCLA. I did a novel writing course, a 9-month novel writing course. And at that point, I had a ton of books under my belt, and I was still terrified of my own stuff. I was terrified to put my own stuff on the page.
What was the block, do you think? Why could you write so easily if you're writing for somebody else and not for yourself?
So there's a couple of things. So there is the taught snobbery of if it's not highbrow. I'm with Neil Gaiman on this. I absolutely don't believe in high and lowbrow. I think all of it is genre fiction. Everything is genre fiction. But I went to a snooty university, and the kind of stuff that I write would never make it. You'd never be invited to sit at high table.
Right. UCLA was like that, was it?
UCLA they are much more trad focused. And so at that time I was writing sci-fi, and the number of people, I went to Iowa as well. I went to Iowa for a bit to their summer workshops. And people almost invariably start with, don't read sci-fi. And they grumble about it. And so I had that built-in fear of, this isn't real writing. And if I put my name to it, they're all going to judge me. And it's going to be, and at that point, I'm making a living. I'm making a good living from my own writing, but I'm just terrified to put my name on anything. Absolutely terrified. And then I don't know how I found Michael Anderle. I don't know how I found him, but I ended up watching his very first talk a few months after he gave that first talk. And I joined the Facebook page for 20 books, and I started seeing people who I'd written books for put their numbers up. And in the early days, a lot of people shared their numbers. And I realized that the money that I had been making for ghostwriting, which was a done deal, you get your money no matter what happens to the book when you're ghostwriting.
So you get that going for it, but...
Yeah. And it's someone else's plot, and you don't have to step out of your comfort zone. But Mike Krause, who runs Muonic Press, a couple of times a year, he opens the doors and interviews for new writers. And my resume is just pants. It just looks so strange. But he had a writing prompt, and he took a chance on me. And so I put something out under a pen name. And it was the first time I had put something out that was purely mine. And that made, by the time the third book came out, that was making 5 figures by the time the third book came out. And that's a 6-figure series. And
what genre is that?
So that's post-apoc. That's post-apocalyptic science fiction.
I was just what you're known for writing now. And what do you do write under your name now, though, don't you?
So at the beginning of COVID, there, I don't know if you know about this yet, but my brother's mother-in-law is being bullied out of her home by a non-blood relative, and I decided I'm going to do something about it. And I thought I'll raise money. I just made tons of money on this series. And somebody said, yeah, but Kate, there's only one you. And I thought, well, maybe I can get other people to work with me. And I put the word out that I was going to put an anthology together, which, of course, that's a way to make money. And people just showed up. I don't know where they came from. I don't really know how they knew me. But about, I want to say 93 writers for the first anthology showed up. And proofreaders showed up, and the Coronitas, who they first met in Edinburgh, they're a group of women writers. They all showed up, and they did formatting for me, and they did all these incredible things. This team just coalesced around this idea. And so those 2 anthologies are out under my name. And as I switch genres, because I'm about to switch genres and go into steamy rom-coms, I'm going to write the first series under a pen name, and then I'm going to put something out under my own name. And that will be the first time.
Will that still be in romance when it goes under your own name with you?
It's comedy post-apoc. It's under my own name.
That sounds like a genre-defining series.
It's written from the dog's POV.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. Well done on the anthologies. I mean, 93 writers seems like a lot, even for a packed anthology.
It was amazing. And it did really, really well. I think, and of course, I thought it was going to do gangbusters, but I think it made about 15 grand. Okay, which all went to Irada. It all went to her. And then my publisher said, well, because we need to make 70 grand, why don't we do some post-apoc? And so I put the word out, and then we, over the last 2 years, we co-wrote, this teams of writers co-wrote 22 books to raise money for this woman to save her home. And I'm just finishing up the last of those books now. But they all worked for free for 2 years. I think COVID really did me a favor. Everyone was bored and they wanted to feel good about themselves. And so they joined me. And if we make money after we've made enough money to save her house, then they'll make money. But boy, because I've worked in film, I've written with other people. And I'm really used to getting a lot of feedback and having people say it doesn't work. And then, you bung it out and then you try something else. And I didn't remember, in those early days when every word is really precious and you want to save everything that you've ever written down. So there were some interesting moments where a bit flouncy from some people, but they pulled through and they were amazing. And so we've got these 3 series out now that are making money for us.
Fantastic.
Which I'm very proud of.
Let me just ask you a few questions about post-apoc. So generally, I guess, set in the future, is it generally real world as in Earth? And how far into, what are the tropes that define it, that make it not fantasy or not science fiction, I guess?
Yeah, not too far in the future. Further in the future is dystopian.
Right.
So you actually want, in post-apoc, you see the collapse happening.
Okay.
And you see people, our readership doesn't want superheroes. They don't want any magic. They don't want any hand wavium. The science is real if there's any science. And if you get it wrong, they will come after you. And if you say clip versus magazine, they will come after you. Check your gun facts if you're going to use, and a lot of them do use guns. For our readership, take a guess. You might have heard this already because you might have heard this if you've seen any of the post-apoc panels. What age group do you think reads post-apoc?
So I off the top of my head, I would have said male 45 plus.
Yeah. Women in their 60s.
Wow.
Yeah. Women in their 60s, because we think it's because it's about hope. So the underlying thing about post-apoc is I will go to the ends of the earth to save my people. And the biggest trope is people being separated and fighting through all of the things they have to fight through to get back to each other. And every so often I think, I should really do, Clan of the Cave Bear. Do you remember when she went out and lived in a cave and did all the things? I think I should go up to Fort Stevens Park and just live in a yurt for a week. And then I think, there's no showers.
Yeah.
The last 2 days.
Electricity. And all, yes.
Electricity.
That's why we write this stuff. We don't have to go method on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Of course, the young generation, Zeds and millennials, think they're living in an apocalypse. Perhaps why they don't read it. But anyway, well, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. We're not specifically talking about post-apocalypse. I think it's really interesting. I want to talk to you a bit about getting out of your own way and what you've learned through that process of being able to write your own novels. Because a lot of people, I want to say straight away, I've just started drafting my 4th book, and I'm reminded once again how bloody hard it is writing. I whizzed through the first 7,000 words, and now I've written about 300 words a day for 4 or 5 days in a row, because I'm just suddenly I'm full of doubts about the story, and then Mark Dawson, I've been spent a couple of days with him, reminded me that's what it's supposed to feel like. There's no shortcut to it, and I think a lot of people do get put off by those hurdles that are naturally part of writing and don't ever break through. How many novels get started and stopped? Is that sort of thing that you talk to people about?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that this is a learnable craft. And I had to study really hard. So I'm aphantasic. I don't see pictures. Barry Hutchinson's the same. He doesn't see pictures either. And so the people who are like, it's like a movie in my head and I just write it down, I think, many swear words, because I don't. So I had to study pretty hard. I had to study the craft to understand, what is the inciting incident and what does an opening hook look like, and what is rising tension and how do you build those pieces. And some people are really put off with that talk. They really don't like talking about the mechanics of it. But I just bought Joanna Penn's new book, writing a novel, and her writing is so clean and crisp and beautiful, and I really, really enjoyed that. And the other one that I think is fantastic, Libby Hawker, Take Off Your Pants. That is a terrific look into really, really bare bones about what does the modern story look like, what is the hero's journey, if we're doing that, and that sitting down, making muscle memory, having, some people use sound, some people use smell, some people light a candle and make it slightly meditative, not in a like woo kind of a way, but in you are triggering your mind to this is this space that is dedicated to it. And I see people who are using the I can't remember what they're called, the typewriters that don't let you onto the internet. They're not typewriters, they are computer.
Yes, those like physical keyboards.
Platforms.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you can't do the distractible thing. One of the big breakthroughs for me were deadlines. So when I hired a coach, and the coach, I loved my coach. I absolutely loved my coach. But I didn't learn a lot about writing. I learned a lot about deliverables. I learned about there is a deadline and you must meet it.
Accountability.
Accountability, absolutely, 100%. And so now I have got a sprint group, and we sprint every day. We sprint. Some of us sprint for longer than others. I write for 8 hours a day.
Wow.
Yep, I write 8 hours a day. It's my job, and I love my job. I absolutely love my job. But you have to create a space where it's somewhere that you want to go, and free up your brain. I currently have a dog who wakes me up every 4 hours, so I'm a little bit punchy and a little bit not quite all there. But I think that building that muscle memory, a lot like an athlete, a sort of tubby sit in your chair athlete. But anyway, you have to sit down for that time and write. And it really doesn't matter if it's shit. Oh, am I allowed to say that?
You can say that.
Okay.
Well, we've just seen your mug, by the way, so the swearing.
Oh.
The adult. The adult tag. The adult tag went about 10 minutes ago.
Oh, yeah. She's marvelous. She's absolutely wonderful.
Little shout out to Elaine Bateman, one of the backbones of the indie world.
We love her. We absolutely love her. I met her in Bali. Did you know she brought pork pies to Bali for me?
Did she? Probably illegal,
yes.
But good old Elaine.
We're sitting down at dinner. Mark Dawson is at the table. I'm too terrified to talk to Mark Dawson. You know, he is.
You don't
just
have
like
to be terrified
big,
to talk to
big
Dawson.
Name. No, I think the nearest I got to talking to him was like, would you like some rum? I'd taken a bottle of rum with me. So rum night, I snuck. He was talking to Dan Wood, and I love Dan Wood. And I poured them a rum, and I ran away. But Elaine Dawson, so she sits down at the table and she shouts in front of all these people, "Oh, you're the pork pie lady!" How is that my brand? My brand is I'm the pork pie lady. Yeah. Anyway, so we love Elaine.
I've just got this image of Elaine walking through the airport, chased by all the sniffer dogs. You've got to vacuum pack them, I guess.
Imagine how daring that was.
We're currently trying to work out how to smuggle saucisson into Seattle for a senior member of the Amazon team who's French and struggles to get good cheese and saucisson in Seattle. But again, I think the dogs are going to have a field day. We have to wrap it up tightly. Anyway, sorry, we're getting slightly sidetracked.
Yes.
So where were we? Gosh, we were talking.
So we were talking about muscle memory.
Yes,
and
muscle
we were
memory.
Talking about...
And I guess that you talk about creating this kind of thinking time to allow your brain to work. And some people do that on walks or during exercise or running or whatever. But if that's okay as well, isn't it? People have their own, but as long as they do have some space where they are undistracted by the internet.
So there's real science about repetitive action freeing your brain up. So the creative side of your brain, it's always working, and you don't necessarily know what's going on. But walking, taking a shower, there's a joke about, I have all my best ideas in the shower.
Yeah.
It's the repetitive action of doing it.
I think it's 100% true. My showers go on long because I'm starting to develop ideas.
Yes, and that's because you're doing something routine that you've done many times, that you are setting muscle memory in action, and you're freeing yourself up. So if you're doing something new, you have to pay attention, really pay attention. And it uses a ton of RAM to do something new. So if you drive somewhere new, you'll be much, much more tired, and it will seem longer than if you drive somewhere that you drive every day, because really you're not pulling up RAM. You are going just from muscle memory to do something. And so this whole other side of your brain has time to sort things out, because it's not doing all the logic stuff that you have to pay really close attention to. So if you're surfing the internet while you're writing, you're closing this side down. You're closing it off. If you go for a brisk walk, or you go, I love chopping vegetables. It's really violent and wonderful, and it frees you up. It just frees you up in this way. If you've got a piece of music that is really super familiar to you and gets you into this alternate state, and then you sit down and you give yourself a dedicated time, and it doesn't matter if it's shit. It doesn't matter if you throw it away. The point is to sit down and hammer the keyboards and keep going until I think you need accountability. I think that the what is it? It's not 1,000 hours. The
10,000, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
So 10,000 with somebody who you're accountable to, who is a kind of guru or somebody that you look up to or somebody who knows what they're doing. I think one of the big wrong things that people do is they get into writing. I've been part of lots of writing groups and I always end up in a side room giving classes to people, which is not what I want to do, but they go into at the word level and they start futzing with sentences, and that will kill you dead. That will kill you absolutely dead. You want people who understand you're making something that has a particular shape. I mean, you're writing action, right? You're writing action, thrillery, plainy things, and that has a certain shape. And if you don't give your readers that shaped thing, they won't know how to tell you, but they will know that it's not quite right. And so finding the right people, even as you're doing something repetitive, you're doing it on a regular basis, you are doing it as a routine thing, you are creating that zone and freeing up your mind. And then you have got deliverables to somebody who knows what they're doing, who you respect. And whether that is somebody who you swap pages with every week, or you find yourself a book coach, or you're in a writing group. The rule is, if you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
And my rule for that is just take Yuda with you everywhere. Yuda was in Bali as well, and he's always going to be the smartest person in the room. So just take Yuda with you, and then you're not the smartest person.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to say the same about having John Dyer with us, but I don't think it quite works either. Anyway, it's funny hearing you say all that, Kate, because I can hear, none of us are perfect, and I'm far from it. And I do. One of the things I've done over the last 3 days since I've run into some doubt about the story that I thought was good, is I've gone back and started fiddling. And Mark said to me today, just press on. Mm-hmm. So you would definitely advise that even if you think this story's not quite working, it's better to press on and draft and write than to stop and go back and try and fix, especially at an early stage.
So if you go back and fix, the muscle that you are using is go back and fix muscle. That's not writing muscle. It's a different part of your brain. It's the logic part of your brain, and it will actually stop you from getting ideas, or the big ideas that you need when you're at that stage of drafting. Drafting shit is way better than I had to stop myself because I've got a particular phrase that I use when I'm talking to real people in the real world, because I'm very sweary.
You can swear. You can swear.
Oh, I can?
Yes.
Okay. So don't word fuck your page. So don't go into every single one and futz and fuck with it, because it isn't going to get better. And what's really, really fascinating is the people who read predominantly what they call literary fiction will tell you that, there's this beautiful sentence that I never forgot. If there is no story there, they won't remember the beautiful sentence, because there was no vehicle that would carry it at all.
Yeah.
Hammering it out in the plainest language that you can without worrying about the words that you're using. One of the biggest, most freeing things that I ever learned was XX for something that I had to look up, so that I didn't go and look it up.
You can search on that afterwards and see where the XXs are.
Yes. Yeah. So he's carrying big gun, and then you just do it in caps and move on, and just keep those muscles moving, and don't go to the but if I tweak this a bit, because you're going to the wrong part of the brain, you're absolutely going to the wrong part of the brain.
This is transformation, I'm sure, for a lot of people. And I've been so lucky with this podcast over the 6 years we've been running it. These interviews always come at the right time for me, because I'm exactly here now, and I need a good talking to, frankly, to stop pissing about, to use a swear word, and fiddling with the first.
Aren't you so proud of yourself? Aren't you so proud of yourself? Because not only did you take the time that it took you to write your first book, you did that publicly. Yeah. I would have died a million deaths. I watched you do that, and I was awed by the fact that you were willing to do that in public and take the shit that you took, and people ribbing you about it and about how long it took. And I'm just like, shut up and leave him alone. He's doing this thing.
I got a lot of support as well as a bit of gentle encouragement, should we say. I got a lot of support as well. But yeah, there were dark days during that period when I thought this is never going to get done, and I can't do it. I'm not capable of doing it. So yes, I am proud, but I'm also somebody who judges themselves by the next thing I'm working on rather than something I've done in the past. So I sometimes should take a second to pick up my print versions of my books and think, I did that.
Yay!
Which is,
Look at that. Is that the new cover?
This is the new cover of Final Flight. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. I mean, I'm proud of this, and every now and again the reviews are good, so that's another nice thing to be able to do. Although, reviews are just reviews. But anyway, yes, not about me. Let's talk a bit more about you.
But I think that you're a really, really good example for people who think that they can't do it.
Yeah.
Because
I promise you I am. Because you wrote this in your notes to me before this interview, but it resonates with me. If I can write a book, I promise you, if you're listening to this, you can write one.
100%. And the people who say that you've either got it or you don't, they don't, who was Michael Jordan? Michael Jordan didn't leap out of the womb and slam dunk something. No. He practiced.
He was a brutal dictator on the court. He was a very, very hard person to live with because he was absolutely, really hard person to live with. But what he got was the most fantastic set of results that's ever been had in basketball. But you're absolutely right. He didn't wander onto the court naturally talented. I hate that expression, naturally talented.
Well, so there are people who have some gifts. There's no doubt about it. But the gift won't write the book. No. The gift can't write the book. The only thing is sitting down and finding that way to free up that side of your brain to do that thing. And it's a kind of magic. And when it works, when you sit down and there are those flow moments when you get into flow. Yeah. And there are, if you're interested in breathing exercises, look up box breathing. I myself don't really like breathing. That doesn't sound quite right, does it?
You should definitely do some breathing. The required amount of breathing, definitely.
Yeah, the required amount. But there's so the people who are into learning to be your best and highest self, they do this thing called box breathing, but it takes you into a state of slight panic. So it raises your adrenaline. Right. And for me, that's not a great place to write from. For me, it's much, much better to go and do violence to vegetables on the chopping board. But something repetitive that gets you out of the logic side of your brain.
Yeah. So there's some really good sort of learnings. I hate that word actually. It's very American learnings. But
you can edit it out
from this. Yes, I can say there's very good things for us to learn. Going back to the distraction, the period of allowing the creative side of your brain to work. I mean, are there some practical tips you talked about? I talked about running and gym. I'm thinking about parents with young children here who have an incredibly, stressful is probably the right word actually, but they're busy people. And if they're not dealing with the children and thinking about that, then they're probably going to sit down and start to work for a bit and then be distracted onto the television. When do they get this time for the creative side of their brain to work?
Yeah, so I don't know if the year before last, Stephen Higgs, who was doing amazing things, he stood up and basically it was, how do you write 300 books in a year, Stephen? And he said, don't sleep. And I think that's, one of those I don't know that I could get by with any less sleep than I do. But when I went to the writing workshop in Iowa, there was somebody who had written her book on her phone. And I don't know how, but she had actually written her entire novel and she was a chapter away from being done. Whoa. And it was a very, very beautiful novel, beautifully written. And she had done it in these tiny 10, 15-minute increments. Whenever she got a break, she worked full time. She had a family. The things that you can do when you start to free up. You can, hire someone to come and clean your house when you've got a bit of money, and you can free up different spaces. So when I worked in the hedge fund industry, I worked for a self-made billionaire, and I watch. It's really interesting to be around that much power because all these millionaires, so all the managing directors are millionaires, and they run to the billionaire to give away their power. They just give it away all the time. It's fascinating. But what I learned from him, watching him, is that you must do that which only you can do. Somebody else can do the laundry. You can send your laundry out now. There are ways that you can bulk cook your meals and freeze them. I mean, do you want to live like this? You probably don't want to live like this. I've heard you talking to other people on the podcast about balance. And I don't really believe in balance. I believe in going all in. I believe, do everything that you can, because it doesn't matter if there's an afterlife or if you're going to get reincarnated or if there's another chance. This is the only you that you will ever be. This is the only time you will be this you. And so do it all. So if you want to write a book, you're going to give something up. You're going to give up watching television. You're going to give up surfing the internet. You're going to give up that hour that you give to Facebook, and it's designed to keep you scrolling. It is very cleverly designed. TikTok, I don't even dare. I loved your talk, by the way.
Thank you.
But I don't. Some of these platforms, I know that I can't go to these platforms because I have an addictive personality, and I will just be like, "Oh, look, another potato! I can see a potato."
Yes.
Whatever it is that is feeding your id, I will go looking for it. And so you have to discipline yourself. You have to find a way to look at your time, do an inventory of your time, and look at where you're giving your time and decide, do you want to give your time to that? Do you want to give your time to Facebook? Do you want to give your time to, are you happy with the X number of hours you spend in the kitchen? Could you batch that? Could you cook on a Saturday and have meals set up for the week? One of my nephews fell to my care. It's not really my story to tell. Anyway, very, very bad things happened and people went to jail, and he fell into my care, and he batch cooks for himself every week. So he sets up his meals so that he's in the Navy now. I'm very, very proud of him. I could just talk about him for hours. But he sets up his meals so that he's got portion control and that he knows what he's taking with him, and he's not spending money. He's 22 and he bought his own house. Wow. So he has been so disciplined about, how do I spend my time? Where do I spend my time? He did a challenge. I don't know. It depends on whether you're a carrot or a stick person. So if you're a carrot person, decide what the reward is for completing it. If you're a stick person, decide how you're going to punish yourself. I saw some people who did, they did a negative challenge. You write 50,000, it was around NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo.
Whichever, I don't know. I always used to say Remo, but now I say Rimo.
I did, yeah. And they did if you can get 50,000 words, you get something wonderful. If you miss the mark, you have to give, and they picked a punitive amount, like you have to give $1,000 to a charity that I choose that you hate.
Wow. Brilliant.
I'm like, I'm not doing that. Why would I do that?
Carrot and stick.
Carrot and stick, yeah. So I think that if you do a time inventory of how you spend your time and really dig into, I need to free up half an hour to write. Am I going to get up earlier? Am I going to batch cook? Am I going to send the laundry out? Am I going to hire a cleaner? How am I going to do that without, you can't really anymore put the kids in a little basket by the fire and just have them walk in circles like you could when in the medieval days.
Yeah. The 70s.
So how are you going to do that? Yeah.
When I was brought up, didn't see my parents for about 15 years.
Go out and play.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. What about the sort of mindset which I see in the groups a bit when we do stuff, that you can see in a comment somebody always has a little, sometimes it's very subtle, there's a kind of a side as the reason you're successful is, or were you lucky because right time for you. And I read straight away into that, the sort of person who's going to spend their whole life. Sorry, can you hear me? There we go.
No.
If you're not watching on YouTube, Kate's earphone fell out. It's back in now. What I read straight away into that is somebody who's going to spend their whole life thinking that there's a reason other people are successful, and it's all unfair. Even if it's a very subtle thing, like, Mark and I both have people who quite regularly attribute any success we have as authors to this podcast, which is ludicrous.
Yeah.
But they say, really lucky for you, you've got a big platform. Well, honestly, these are not the people who buy my books.
They're not the people who buy your books, and you built it yourselves, and it's an amazing resource for people. There's a really, really wonderful Russian saying, pray for the bus and run like hell. And I think that the English equivalent is you make your own luck. So the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah, Gary Player, great quotes, yeah.
I think that put yourself with the people that you want to be and be around those people and keep doing the work. If you don't do the work, if you believe in luck, go and buy a lottery ticket. Or, I could sell you the Brooklyn Bridge. I could be that lucky. But I just don't think that it is luck. I mean, I should say I am enormously privileged. I went to the university of my choice and had a great time, and work has always come to me. But I'm a workaholic. I always work. I put myself out there. I do a lot of stuff for free. And what I do for free is me building that muscle, building that writing muscle, because I have always known what I wanted to do. And I've always wanted to be a writer. And it took me, I don't really want to say how old I am, but anyway, it took me until quite recently to pony up and put my name on anything, even though I could do it.
Yeah.
Even though I could do it, it took me that long.
Yeah, and I don't want to, obviously neither of us want to belittle the difficulties that other people have and the advantages that we have demographically and otherwise, but the point I'm making is you've got to believe, you've got to get out your own way. You sort of started with that and not find excuses for other people's success, because that's just as damaging as you being defeatist about your own abilities. Well,
if you're sending a message to your subconscious that it's not for you, it's for them, and they were lucky and I'm not lucky. You're as lucky, go and read some of the abundance people and what they do with around mantras and what they do about creating your own reality. And it's really about where you put your attention. And if you put your attention on the thing that you want, rather than this little subtle thing that you're talking about, rather than, oh, they got it because they're lucky. If you don't spend that energy over there and you spend it over here on, I've got 15 minutes. I'm going to write 100 words. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. 10 words, 10 of the best words 10 crappy words. I'm just going to sit down and do it and nothing else. That's where you need to put your brain.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the old dress for the job you want. Thank goodness I don't have to dress for jobs anymore, but it is exactly the mindset. You can see how that works and how that does actually, a silly thing like that does actually help somebody get to where they want to go. So Kate, what do you give talks at a conference? I know. Have you done any non-fiction writing in this area?
I have, yeah. No, not in this area. I've done lots of non-fiction for mostly in science. So I was a ghostwriter, and there are some interesting people out there. There are some really interesting people. So John Evans, who I think he's been on the podcast.
Yes, we know John.
John has been hounding me to write craft books. And Dan Wood, bless him. So my problem is that, like a lot of us, my worry is I have nothing new to say. I have nothing original to say. I haven't thought of something new. And Dan Wood said, some of us just need to hear it in a different voice.
And you're very, very good at telling it, I think. Which is a reason why, if you can be encouraged, I think it would be a very useful thing for us. I mean, Mark Racklow, who's been on this show as well, writes sort of self-help books. He very openly says there are no new ideas in his books. But you look at the feedback he gets, readers adore what he's teaching them because it's being told it. It's an opportunity to being told it in a particular voice that works with them. So I think that's the same with you. I think you've got a gift for this.
That's very kind. That's very kind. And now I'm panicking, of course.
You don't have to write this book, but
No. I've discovered that the thing that you most want is probably the thing you most fear, and people saying nice things to me makes me just like ever so slightly panicky.
Yeah.
If shoe is going to drop, something's going to happen. But I am thinking about it because I've been because of this move that I'm making to romance. I've been thinking a lot about how romance gets poo-pooed and how it gets scorned, and I'm like, really, you look at Megan Quinn, you look at Lucy Score, and you've got anything to say about what they are doing? They are rocking the charts. They are absolutely rocking it.
And Lucy's book's brilliant. I've read the one that she's had big hits in. It's hilarious and brilliant.
Yes.
And
isn't she so funny?
Yes,
she's
very, very funny person. Yeah,
funny, and she's lovely. She's very, very lovely.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I mean, yes, she's a very good friend, and she is lovely, and I love her. But but
I've been thinking a lot about what we do with that kind of derision and why it's derided, why romance is derided. And I've been thinking about that in craft terms, and thinking about, because I try not to ever give the same talk twice. So I'm thinking about the next talk that I'm going to give. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert Maslow's hierarchy of needs so that the things that we think of as base needs are in fact about self-actualization. And if I can just like thread a needle I haven't quite threaded yet, I think writing a book is about self-actualization. I think it really is one of the highest callings. And I know there are a whole bunch of people who'll be like, no, 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 no. I've got a really, really good writer friend who refuses to call herself an artist.
Right.
She just refuses, absolutely. No, but I think that there's something very wonderful about writing a book. Very wonderful.
Yeah.
So I went off on a tangent there because I'm thinking about these things. It's not quite coalesced yet, but I'm thinking.
Well, that's okay. That we may be able to encourage you. Let's talk a bit about your next venture. Let's finish on that area. So you're going to go into rom-com, spicy rom-com, which is actually Lucy Score territory. I think that's
it is absolutely.
Why the move into that? What's prompted that?
So I am a literary omnivore. I read everything I've written. Well, I haven't written everything because I don't believe that I can write military, although John Evans challenged me on that. He's like, you just need to know as much as you need to know anything.
Just put lots of X's and send the manuscript to me and I'll fill that in with General
Big
Dynamics
tank.
F-16. Yes.
Big gun.
Abrahams.
I can't write lit RPG because I've never played the game in my life, and they are really particular.
That is a very specific niche lit RPG. Yeah, and
Dakota Kraut and James Hunter are doing gangbusters. They're doing great over there. So I looked around and I looked at what I enjoy, and I looked at the divide between plot and story. Plot is what happens. Story is why it matters to the main protagonist. And I tend to write towards the story end. And romance is very, very much about how people are feeling, how they're reacting, how they process something, how they get out of their own way. It's big on how you get out of your own way. And also it's where the big money is. And I'm a 6-figure author who wants to be a 7-figure author. And so I decided, I went to my boss, Micah, because I can't add numbers at all. If you give me 2 numbers, I can give you 7 answers. They're all different and they'll all be wrong. So I actually bought the course. I bought Mark Dawson's course and I saw a spreadsheet. So I write for a publisher and I'm very, very happy to give him 50% of what I earn because it's so much better than all the trad deals. The trad deals are really, really terrible. Yeah. So I think these indie houses that are growing are really something. They're really something interesting that's going on at the moment. And I just decided that I want to go for the big money. And I can't remember a book that I didn't finish. I love reading. It has always been my refuge. And I decided that I'm going to write rom-coms, and I love to laugh. I love to laugh, and I think it's revolutionary. I think that it's mostly women, not exclusively, but women writing about women's pleasure is it's still a huge deal. I mean, the feminists of the 70s were talking about it, and it's so depressing when I see young women who are talking about exactly the same things as if it's new. I'm like, where did that all go? Where did it go? But I think it's wonderful. And some of the groups, good Lord, I thought that I don't think of myself as particularly vanilla or particularly unadventurous. I didn't know half the stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness, just wonderful. And what's really the rule in a lot of these groups, in the spicy and the steamy romance groups, is don't yuck on anyone else's yum.
Yeah.
So it might not be for you, but don't trash it. Don't trash it for anybody else. And let them find their pleasure where they may. And I think, John Truby says it's the hardest genre to write because you've got these really strict built-in expectations. But I know I'm not allowed to disagree with John Truby. But I just think it's that romance readers and writers know the language of the genre much better than a lot of other genres. But mysteries, if you don't have a dead body in a police procedural, it's probably not a police procedural. Yeah. And so I think the rules are there. They're just not codified the same way. I think it's a very exciting space. We've written, I'm co-writing these at the moment. We've written 2 books and we'll launch when we've got the 3rd one in the bag. I write about 6,000 words a day. Wow. That's my sweet spot. I can write more than that, but if I write more than that, I'll crash the next day. I've experimented with that. So my sweet spot is 6,000 words a day. yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm very excited.
Wow, I'm excited about that as well. And I'm a bit like you. I've noticed this again as I'm sort of drafting the most. I'm story driven and have to work harder on the needs and wants of the character and that arc. So this time I've actually started with that. I've gone back to Save the Cat, which is a book I enjoyed, but always read it at the wrong time. And now I'm going back through the book at the right time ahead of it and making sure I'm getting that right. But I'm probably because of that actually finding it hard because I'm sort of second guessing a new version of me. But anyway, it's not about me. It's been about you, Kate. And it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you. I'm so pleased that you've come onto the show. I've loved this chat. I personally feel quite motivated by it all. And I know that the listeners will as well. So, yeah, brilliant. Where can people see you this year if they want to see you in the flesh and be in the room with this inspiration?
So my wife's about to have surgery. If it goes well, I hope to come to London.
Okay.
If she's still in recovery, then I will definitely be in Vegas. And I am probably going to NINC. I've signed up for NINC for the last 3 years, and something has happened around there. And it's Florida, so there's already
It's a nice bit of Florida, though. I love NINC, the beach and the sun. Although there was a hurricane last year, but
didn't people get stuck? Well, people had trouble getting home.
Some people did. Yeah, we ended up evacuating on the road. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah.
So NINC, Vegas, and if I'm very, very lucky, SPF London.
Yes.
But that's going to depend on how surgery goes.
Oh, well, look, fingers crossed for your wife going in under the knife. And yeah, we hope to see you around. Kate, thanks again for coming onto the show.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
There you go. I really enjoyed chatting to Kate Pickford. Motivational all round. I hope you enjoyed that interview as well. We'll have lots more, I'm sure, from Kate over the years. Okay, Mark, I think that's probably it for us today. Had a very lovely day, actually. Boo Walker, famous novelist Boo Walker, came over to London yesterday. He's doing some research for his next novel, and he asked me to take him out. So not in this sort of thriller way, but I took him to Highgate Cemetery, where I was able to pay homage to
Douglas Adams. Yeah,
Douglas Adams,
and then Karl Marx.
Not Karl Marx. No, we walked past that one. George Eliot, I think, is also there. And lots of people are buried. It's like our Arlington, I guess, but it's Gothic. And in that cemetery, he saved that moment to quiz me about a murder in his book, which takes place at the turn of the century or late 19th century. And we talked it through, involving the House of Lords and stuff. So we came up with some good turns on that. So it seemed a very appropriate way for two authors to be chatting about a murder. I don't know what the people near us thought. But there you go. Anyway, we ended up in a jazz club at night. Ronnie Scott. So honestly, it sounded like white noise to me, but he loved it. Boo loved it.
Ronnie Scott sounds like white noise. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not a massive jazz fan, I have to say, but yeah.
John Dyer is. I told John Dyer then, he said, "What? You would have hated it, but you would have loved it." Yeah. We'll take John Dyer out one day to Ronnie Scott's. Okay, that's it. I think. Thank you very much indeed to the team behind the scenes for putting this show together. We will be here next week. We're going to record that in a moment, actually, so you'll see us in the same clothes if you're watching on YouTube. And you'll see my back to front top.
Right.
And guesses, you get a point if you can guess why I'm wearing a back to front logo on my hoodie. Lateral thinking. Okay, that's it. All that remains for me to say is a goodbye from him.
And a goodbye from me. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishingshow. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with the Self-Publishing Show.